Hello everybody, and welcome to BrightStreamTV. I'm Josh Cavalier, your host for the next 3 hours. I'm going to be covering Adobe Captivate 9 responsive design. You know, in the last 20 years that I've been in e-learning, there has been just a tremendous amount of change, and most of that has happened in the last 5 years with mobile. When I first started doing e-learning development, it was pretty easy. It was that dedicated machine in the corner. It was one screen resolution, and that was pretty easy as far as design. Now, things have changed dramatically. In today's environment, we now have multiple devices with multiple sizes, which can give us multiple problems. And in today's show, I hope to demystify the whole entire process for creating mobile content in Adobe Captivate 9. With this release, we have found that Adobe has really paid attention to the needs of the marketplace, and what you're going to see here is a tremendous tool that's going to empower you to create content for all these different devices and your particular situation. So I can't wait to get into it. Let me go ahead and give you an overview of what I'm going to cover. Development considerations. Things that you need to think about before you even jump in and create any form of mobile project in Captivate 9. Project planning. What do you need to think about? How do you adjust your workflow for artwork, video, laying out the page, your instructional design, everything? We're gonna talk about that. We'll get into Captivate. We'll talk about the responsive interface, how you need to work within the Captivate environment to be productive. We're going to be building out pages. And as part of that, remember to download those student files if you're following along, and you can build them out right with me. Publishing. So once we go in and we get our course ready to go, how do we get it out the door? What are the options in Captivate 9 to successfully test and publish your content to a mobile device? All right, so that is the agenda for today. Let's go ahead and jump right into Captivate. Now, I've already gone in and I have those student files ready to go, and we're going to open up Captivate 9 and talk a little bit about the workflow and design and development considerations before you get started. So let's go ahead and open up Captivate 9 and get rolling here. So here we are in Adobe Captivate 9, and I want to begin a responsive project. Now, if you've never done a responsive project before, it's a typical workflow of going in and making a new project. You can see that responsive project is front and center. There it is. Before we had responsive projects, you would typically come in, create a file from a template or a blank project, but responsive projects are very special, and we must start the workflow right here. So let's go in and let's click on responsive project and hit create. All right, so we're now in the Adobe Captivate 9 responsive project interface. Before I go in and talk any details about this interface and how it functions, I first want to go in and discuss with you development and design considerations before you get started with any type of project like this. All right, so the first thing that you want to consider when you're going into a project like this is the viewport, or what mobile devices that we're addressing. So again, you'll want to go in and think about, am I just going to one type of device? Am I going to all types of devices? I know that for many of you, you have to target all types of devices. Some of you, it may be just one device for a certain division or group of people. Lucky you. So with the thought, what's the screen dimension? What am I working with here? So this is, when we talk about mobile devices in the screen, this area here is called the viewport. And I got a website for you to go check out that's going to help you out before you even get this project started in Captivate, what is the viewport, or what is the physical dimension of the screen on these devices, right? I know when I first got started, I was only concerned about 72 pixels per inch for the screens. Now the pixel densities of these devices are 330 or higher. And once you implement or have a browser, a mobile browser on here, the viewport is going to be critical for your success in figuring out sizes like artwork or how much text is going to go on the screen. So let's take a look at this website. I'm going to go ahead and open up a browser, and I already have the website open. This is at viewportsizes.com/mine. Take a moment and open this up either in your desktop or mobile device, and you can see that it's going to give you the physical dimension of the area within there. So if you go in and you modify your viewport, if I'm going for a more portrait setup, you can see that it changes, landscape, it modifies. I mean, this is great. If you're targeting a specific device, open up this site, get the dimension, and you'll have an idea of how to prep your artwork and get things ready to go. All right, so that's the first consideration. Let's go back to Captivate. Another thing that you want to think about when you are creating content for mobile is, how is the instructional design going to change, or how are things going to modify versus a regular Captivate project? Well, in a regular Captivate project, you're only concerned about a fixed dimension. In here, not the case. Screen sizes are going to change on you, and that means layouts are going to change on you, and so we have to take that under consideration. I know when I first started doing responsive projects, I was shocked at the amount of time that it takes to go in and properly plan and execute to accommodate all these different screen sizes. Now, Adobe has done a great job in creating a tool that will expedite the content creation process for you to accommodate all these different dimensions, but still, it's going to take planning. And I'm sure once you complete this training, you'll have a better idea of how to go about the planning process and execute properly here inside of Captivate for the development portion of it. So again, be well aware that your development time will increase, but the payoff is huge because your students will be able to consume this content properly on multiple devices. Let's now go ahead and take a look at the responsive design interface here in Captivate. In Captivate 9, we can see across the top that we have these different settings here to accommodate different screen dimensions. These are called breakpoints. The default breakpoint sizes that we have in here are desktop, they're tablet portrait, and they're a mobile portrait. We do have the ability to add additional breakpoints in here, but for right now, let's just go ahead and let's keep these 3 breakpoints. Without even adding any type of content in here, I'm going to go ahead and preview this just to show you exactly what does responsive mean. If you've never created a responsive project before, what happens to the user as they experience the content, as they go to a different device, or even change the orientation of their device? Let's go to preview, and let's preview this project. Here's the Captivate project. Now, obviously there's nothing in here at the moment, but watch what happens to the screen as I go in and I scrub the slider back and forth. It is responding to the dimension, and you can see down here with the playback bar how it's responding to the screen. That is absolutely amazing. And when we start adding content in here, that's what we have to consider. What's going to happen when we have multiple dimensions in here? Where are our assets going to go? How is the screen going to lay it out? What is the user experience for interactions that we create, for quiz questions that we put in here, for video that we put in? All that needs to be considered. But the beautiful thing about this is that if you plan this properly, the student experience is going to be great, whether it be on a desktop, tablet, or smartphone. Let's go back. So here we are back in Captivate, and we're ready to go in and get our project started. Now, just a little bit of background as far as the student files. So we're going to be working with a restaurant called Spring House, and we have a storyboard that we're going to take a quick look at. The storyboard is going to have certain types of slides that are in there, and I will address some workflow items as we go through it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop open that storyboard, talk about the slides that we're going to be creating, and then come back into Captivate and get into some of the pre-work, like things that you need to do to set up your Captivate file before you actually start adding content like images and audio and video and interactions and quiz questions. So let's take a look at the student files. Student files I have, let's just sit on my desktop. In the Lesson 1 folder, you can open up either the PDF document or the Word document. I'm just going to go into the PDF. And here we have our responsive storyboard. So we have certain types of slides in here, a title slide, learning objectives, a video overview, knowledge check, topic slide, and so on. I think the big thing to consider as you move forward with a responsive project is where is my content originating from? I know that for many of you, PowerPoint is a big consideration. And unfortunately, PowerPoint is not part of this workflow. In a regular Captivate workflow, you may insert PowerPoint in there and perform round-trip edits, but that's not the case with a responsive project, so please keep that in mind. Also, you'll have to take in consideration the types of assets that you have, background artwork, any photos, and as you're going to see, when the layout changes, do we need to create additional versions of those assets to accommodate the various screen sizes? So you may have assets indicated on a slide here in your storyboard, but when it comes down to production, we're going to have to create multiple versions to accommodate. All right, so just keep that in mind. All right, so that's our storyboard. So let's go ahead and go back into Captivate and let's get this process started. So just like any other workflow, I'm not just going to go in and start slapping content in here. I want to think about the foundation of my project, which is going to be the theme and layouts. The theme and layouts. So what is it going to look like, and where is my content going to sit as I need certain types of slides, right? So in Captivate 9, we do have themes that are available to us right here. You can see that we have various themes ready to go, and I can simply go ahead and click on one of these themes, and I'm off and running. All right, so let's say that I want to access a different theme here. I'm just going to pick this one. Again, it's entirely up to you if you want to pick a different theme. All overrides to object styles and properties will be lost. Do you want to continue? Sure, let's go ahead and overwrite this. And now we have this new theme applied to the responsive project. You can see that as I go in and click the different breakpoints, the theme responds, and this is looking really good. Excellent. So again, we want to take a look at theme, and we also want to go in and take a look at the various layouts that we're going to accommodate this responsive project. where can we see the layouts? Let's go to the Properties panel. Let's go down to the Master Slide dropdown. And here we have all the various layouts that are part of this theme. The layouts have been created in what's called a master slide. And you can see that we have various layouts in here that's going to accommodate this whole entire project. That's fantastic. So the theme has been implemented, and now it's time to go in and take a look at adding our content in here. But before we do that, we need to take a look at this whole responsive design thing. For some of you, this is a mystery, right? I mean, you're used to going in and taking an asset like an image and just putting it on the page, and there it sits. Well, it's a little different ball game here. When you add an asset in a responsive course, there's different ways that we can go in and tell where that asset is at. Not only that, but we can also go in and, based upon the screen dimension, give it a completely different asset to accommodate that size. I can actually swap out or even change artwork around just to make sure things fit on this phone. So let's talk about that first before we move forward and start blocking out our course here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and just create a blank slide. And let's draw a simple object and begin to learn about positioning and how things are laid out in a responsive project. So let's go ahead and learn about positioning in our responsive course. Let's go to the Slides drop-down, and let's just make a blank slide. All right, now before we go any further, probably a good idea to go ahead and save my course. So I'm going to save this out in my course folder, and I'm just going to save it out as lesson 1. Excellent. So you can see that we have these breakpoints across the top that are indicating the various screens we want to accommodate. We have desktop, we have tablet portrait, and we have mobile portrait out of the gate. Now we obviously have different breakpoints here for customization. I will get to those later on. We're going to keep it simple and just go with 3. When you start designing in the Captivate 9 environment, you should always start at the desktop. Now, I know that seems counterintuitive, right? For many of you, you've heard of the term mobile first, where you're going to design in the smallest screen first and then work your way up. That's going to be a difficult task here in Captivate 9. And as we get into it and I talk about the positioning of objects and the dependencies between these views, it will begin to make sense. So for right now, you got to trust me. We're going to go with desktop first and then talk about where these items are going to sit. All right. So let's go in and let's start at desktop and let's just place an object. We're going to go to shapes. I'm just going to get an oval. I'm just going to draw this oval right onto the screen. All right. So, it looks like, hey, the oval's fine where it's at. Watch what happens here as we go in and we click on tablet and we click on mobile portrait. You can see that this object is beginning to scale, right? So we got a couple different things that are happening there with the object itself. Very interesting. One of the new panels that you'll see specific to a responsive project is the position panel right over here on the right-hand side. Let's go ahead and click on that, the position panel. And as I go in and I click and I move my circle around in my desktop view, you can see that the position values are changing, but these are different values than probably what you have seen before. If you've done any kind of position work in a Captivate project that's not responsive, you're used to pixels. Now we have percentages. So what is all that about? Again, so for the longest time, I would design in pixels and have things in absolute values on an X and Y axis. Now we're talking about a relative position, and relative positions deal with percentages and how far from a percentage standpoint something is from another object or the edge of the screen. And that's just the reality of working here within a responsive project. So it's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of thinking. But I'm going to give you some tips here to help you along so it makes it a little bit easier as you begin your work with relative values. So again, it may seem a little difficult at first, but once you get in here and you start working with multiple objects and getting their position and seeing the relationship between objects and all of that, obviously it's going to get easier down the line here. So again, when you see a percentage, it's a relative value, and it's very different than our absolute value with pixels. So let's go in and take a look at this relative value. So as I'm moving this circle around, you can see that these relative values are modifying. I have top and I have left. Those are the two values that are currently affecting this object. As I move my circle up to the top, you can see that now top is 0, and as I move it down in a relative position, these values here change. Same thing with left. If I continue to move my object towards the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the value begins to decrease, and once I hit the edge, it zeroes out. Another thing I want you to notice is take a look at the color around these values. It is purple. In Captivate 9 responsive design, knowing your layout colors is critical, especially when you have 5 different breakpoints. You're going to get to know these colors very, very well and what they mean. The color here, purple, indicates that the desktop is driving the position of the object. It's almost like it's trumping the other views and it's taking precedence over them. Watch what happens when I click on Tablet Portrait. We see this green across the top, but these values here are still in purple. What does that mean? Well, we're still grabbing the values from the desktop version. We haven't changed anything or made anything unique in this tablet portrait view. Let's go down to mobile portrait. Same thing, they're still purple. So the desktop is driving the position. Same thing with the object size. The desktop is driving the height, and it's also driving the width. Now, let's say that we want to make this circle unique for each view. Let's start back up at the desktop. So here I am in my desktop view, and I'm going to just scale this up, put it, towards the center here. That's great. Let's now switch to our tablet portrait, and now we're going to make it unique. I'm just going to slide this over a little bit so it fits in the screen. All right, so what I'm going to do is go in and modify the position of this object to accommodate the tablet portrait. So I'm going to just go ahead and click on it and drop it down a little bit right here. Now watch what happens to those colors. Whoa, they just changed. When these colors change, we now see the indication that tablet portrait is driving the value in this view. All right. If I go back up to my desktop, they go back to purple. So here is the unique values for desktop for this circle. Here's the unique values for tablet portrait. Now what about this mobile portrait? What's going on there? Well, the values will cascade down. They will cascade down. So if we click mobile, look at that. The tablet portrait has trumped the mobile because it's not unique. Now we're not getting the desktop values, we're getting values from the prior breakpoint, which just happens to be the tablet. I bet you're going to guess what's going to happen when I move this circle now, right? So I'm going to go ahead and move this up. Watch the color. Oh, look at that. So now that was kind of interesting because I just moved it straight up, and so the top and the bottom values have changed, but the left and the right remain the same. Why? Because I didn't change the position left or right. Watch what happens when I move it just a little bit here to the right. They update. Now the values are unique for each one of these views, and that's fine. That's great. That may be the case to accommodate each one of these views. That's wonderful. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a preview once again and watch what happens as we go in and navigate through these breakpoints, and more importantly, what happens in between the breakpoints. Let's go to preview and simply just preview our project. So here's that first screen that we have, and again, you can see how it's going in and modifying. The timeline simply kicked us to the next slide, which is fine. This is what I want to talk about. Let me go ahead and scale this down slightly so we can see this. So here we have our breakpoints, and this is the desktop. Here's our tablet portrait, and here's our mobile portrait. Great. Now, what about those in-between sizes? What's going to happen with that? Well, again, Captivate's got you covered. Notice that as I go in and I hit a breakpoint, it begins to scale that object up because it is relative. I told you that relative value is so important, not only for the position at that breakpoint, but the position and the size of the object in between the breakpoints. Again, if you don't know what types of devices that you're going out to, you've got to accommodate all types of different views. And look at that. Isn't that beautiful? That's great. Excellent. All right, well, let's go ahead and get out of our preview here, and let's go back to Captivate. All right, so again, when you go into a certain view and you're working with an object, we are going to have percentages that we are dealing with. These are relative. Now, what if I want to be very specific about the position of an object? Like, let's say that I have like a logo, right? And we're going to go ahead and we're going to eventually bring a Springhouse logo in here and set its position to a certain location on every single screen. Well, I can go in and do things with pixels if I really want to, but percentages are going to get the job done. Also, I may want to go in and measure against as opposed to the left. I may want to go ahead and go to the right-hand side of the screen and modify that too. So let's now go in and take a look at putting a logo in and what that means with an absolute position. And what we're going to try to accomplish here is to get the Springhouse logo in and put it in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. All right, let's give it a go. So for our circle, we can just go ahead and eliminate the circle by simply hitting delete on our keyboards. I'll just click OK and remove that. I now want to add the Springhouse logo in here, and I specifically want to place this logo in the upper, we're going to say upper left-hand corner of the interface. Let's go to Media. Let's go to Image. We'll go into our student files, and that logo is actually going to be sitting inside of Lesson 2, Images, and there's the logo. Let's go ahead and hit Open. So here's the Springhouse logo, and again, if I click on Tablet Portrait, let's take a look at Position. You can see that the desktop value is trumping everything. but I need this logo to be in the upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to take the logo, and I'm in desktop view. This is where I want to start, and we'll put the logo up there. It's fine. I mean, that's pretty easy, right? Let's now go to tablet portrait. All right, that seems to be working out fairly well. And let's go to mobile. Well, what do you know? It's working out for each one of those. Hey, that's great. And top left is probably one of the easiest positions just because that is the reference point for this object. Now, let's say we flip the script on this and we want to put the logo in the bottom right. Let's follow that. So I'll go back to desktop. I'm going to modify my view here so I can see the whole entire work area by going up to the menu. Let me select best fit. All right, so this is going to give me a better view here. I'm going to take the Springhouse logo and bring it down to the bottom right. Let me go into tablet portrait. Oh boy, that's where things start to break down. Yeah, it's not working out so well. Why is that? Well, again, because we are working with a relative value from the desktop, and it's still in play. We're not referencing the bottom. We're not referencing the right-hand side of the screen. And so this is the rub. You really want to make sure that you understand the relationship with your object and where those relative values are pointing to. Again, out of the box, everything is referenced in the top left. But now I want to go ahead and put something in the bottom right. And I need to modify or change the reference points so it's what you can say pinned down in the bottom right-hand corner. So in this next part, we're going to go ahead and take a look at a little tool that's going to help us out when we want to position objects in the bottom right. And this is going to make your life a lot easier, believe me. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to accommodate the tablet portrait and the mobile portrait with this logo down in the bottom right. All right, so back in the desktop we go, and everything is looking great right here. I'm going to go in and go to tablet portrait, and things start to break down. So I know I can just take this object and just drag it down there, but I really want to go in and start utilizing the values here of bottom and right. Bottom and right. Now, you're like, well, I can't go in and change these values. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to click this little guy right here, Smart Position. Let's go ahead and select that. So take a look at these bars that are created here, and let's look at the values. You'll notice that the bar going up here, the magenta line, is the value of 65%. Look at that relationship. So it's going to the top of the screen, the relative value is 65, and you can see it pegged here at 65. To the left, it's 44. It's what you would expect right here. The left value is 44. Now, watch what happens. I want to go in and I want to move this down here so it's pegged down here in the corner, but it's still, again, utilizing the left and top. I can take these end caps, click on them, and drag them and change the relationship. So now I want to reference the right-hand part of the screen. I release my mouse, and look at that. It's now using the right. Well, I bet you know what's going to happen here. I'm going to go in and take this end cap, move it down to the bottom. Well, it looks like I got to go in and change my view here a little bit. Let's go out a little bit more. There we go. So I'll grab that end cap, drag it down, and apply it to the bottom of the screen. And now we're referencing the bottom. So here's our desktop, still referencing top and left. Here is our tablet portrait, referencing the bottom. Now, what would you expect to have happen in the mobile? Well, it's going to get trumped, right? So whatever values that are being used here are going to be used in mobile until we change it. Let's click on mobile. Oh, it's perfect. It's right where we want it to be. Even though we're using the tablet portrait values, they're just fine, referencing the bottom and right in a relative value. Now, we better go ahead and clean up that desktop. So I'll go to desktop, change the values here, like so, and like so. All right. Now, one thing to take in consideration. If I were to go in and change the desktop first and have the values cascade all the way down, this all would be in purple, and I probably wouldn't have to worry about it. But because I went in and changed my tablet first, before I changed the desktop, it took precedence over the mobile. It's something you got to think about as you move forward. So when I mentioned that you should start your designs in desktop, you really should. Otherwise, it's going to get very confusing as you go in and attempt to tweak and modify tablet or tweak and modify portrait, thinking that, oh, I changed it in the desktop, it's going to go ahead and cascade down. Not the case. Once you go in and change it here, a change that occurs in desktop is not going to go down the cascade. So just be careful with that. All right. Wow. So we've gone in and we have learned about the relative position of the object. We've changed the logo from the upper left to the bottom right, and it's consistent all the way through our views. That's great. That's position. Now I want to go in and talk about the object size and how that works. Again, it's looking pretty good right now. We'll probably go ahead and give it a preview. But let's say I want to go ahead and tweak and modify the size of the object. Let's see how that works. Again, I want to go in and start working with my desktop view here for the size of the object. And currently, the height of the object is set to auto. Now, I can go in and set it to a percentage, relative percentage. I can set it to pixels. And we also have this other value in here, percent relative, and this deals when we have multiple objects that are relative to each other. Now I'm just going to go ahead and take this logo and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and I'm just going to go ahead and scale it down. Notice that the width value, get this selected here and go back to position, the width value is maintained here. Let's go to tablet portrait. Again, what do you think? That's right. The desktop is kicking in and it is trumping what's happening in the tablet view. Now I can go in and scale this up. It now turns green. So now the tablet portrait view, as far as the object size, takes precedence. Let's go ahead and click on mobile portrait. I want to scale that up. Watch the color. And there we go. Both the bottom and right values have kicked in, and also the object size has kicked in. All right, so let's preview. We'll preview the project. Let's watch the position and the size of this logo. It'll kick in here in just a moment. There it is. So here we are in the mobile portrait, tablet, desktop. Let me go ahead and scrub the size here. And I think that's going to look pretty good at any size. Excellent. All right. So, working with a single object as far as its position and size, once you get in there and you start understanding the relationship between top and left and bottom and right and getting the position down, it's going to come to you pretty quick. That'll be pretty easy. But now let's take a look at what happens when we have two or more objects And I know like a popular thing to do is to take a character and have a caption coming out of the character. Let's see what happens when we have that set up in our layout. And that's what we're going to put on this screen is we're going to go ahead and have a character, we're going to have a caption, and take a look at that relationship. So now what if we have one or more objects that we want in proximity to each other? Let's go and explore that. We'll go back into Captivate and go back to the desktop view. In this view, I want to add a character, and I also want to add a call out coming out of the character. And let's see what happens with both of these objects once we change the breakpoint. Let's go to Media. Let's select Characters. I happen to have a few characters loaded up for my assets, but you know what? Let's go ahead and let's go to Business. Select this gentleman, the first picture, and just click OK. All right, so I have this character in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and move him off here to the left. Let's now insert a shape. We'll go to Shapes, and I want a call out. We'll use an oval call out. We'll select it, click and drag, and establish that oval call out. Now I'm going to go ahead and just take the tail, put it up here, and he's going to be giving us a message. Now, this looks great, but what's going to happen when we start changing the breakpoints? Let's give it a go. So I'm going to go to Tablet Portrait. That's looking pretty good. And I'm going to go to Mobile Portrait. Hey, that's not looking bad. So this happens to be working out fairly well as far as the position, but I think we're lucking out. We're actually getting very lucky with the position, and it's not always the case. When you are talking about the relationship between the objects and things are tucked in the upper left-hand corner, it's a little bit easier. Now let's take a look at what happens when we flip that script and put things down towards the bottom right. So back up at Desktop. I'll take the character, and we'll put the character over here. And we'll take the call out, and let's put the call out over here. I'm going to scale this character down some. That's good. Shift select, hold down the Shift key, move it down, and then move the call out over here, like so. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at Tablet Portrait. Oh yeah. So you can see that once we bring these objects in, the orientation, the whole thing starts to break down once we want to get something down in the bottom right-hand corner. So, and also the position of the relationship of the objects, they seem to be fairly close to each other, but again, I want to make sure that they're intact as we go through each of the changes in the breakpoints. Just to see the relationship and what happens as we go through the breakpoints, let's do a quick preview. I'm going to go to Preview. Let's preview the project. Again, we'll get past this first slide. All right, so here's my character. And you can see that, yeah, this is just going to be an issue here. In some layouts, it looks okay, but once we go into others, it just, look at that. That totally starts to break down. So I now want to go in and show you the steps for making sure that the character and the caption are positioned properly, that the relationship between those two remain intact all the way through these different breakpoints. All right, so let's go back to Captivate. Again, we always start with our desktop. I'm going to go in and make sure that I have the character, the size, the position, everything that I need. So I'm going to start out with resizing my character. Let's set that first. We'll then go ahead and we'll set the caption, tail, where we want it. So we'll get this adjusted. like so. All right, that's fine. And make sure that you open up your position panel. And everything looks good. We'll now go to tablet portrait. All right, so again, things start to break down. Not a problem. We'll go in and we'll position the character. Now, thinking about the relationship here, the problem was with the top and the left. Again, in the desktop, not a problem where that's sitting, but now I really want to go ahead and consider using my bottom and using my right. So I'm going to go in and grab my end cap here. Look for the object that's relating to. I want to relate to the bottom. And then we'll also go off to the right-hand side. What about this object? We'll move that into position. We'll move it there for now. Should we relate it to the bottom and to the right? Yeah, we'll start there. Let's start there. Here we are to the right, and here we are to the bottom. All right, that's a good start. Let's go to mobile portrait. Again, you can see the cascade down. I'm going to go ahead and modify my size. Modify the size and position. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the breakpoints. And maybe we'll make this guy a little bit bigger. Let's take a look at each one. All right, this is looking good. Let's open up the position panel and take a look at the values. When I go to tablet portrait, again, remember these are set right here. I didn't change the object size. When I go to mobile portrait, yeah, they're all unique here in the mobile view. Let's preview. So I preview the project. We'll take a look at the position. And we'll go to the breakpoints. This is all looking good. And we'll move this back and forth. And oh, well, that didn't work for long. Yeah, we got another problem. So yeah, in between here, we only have a portion of this that's looking really good. And so why is that? Well, when you're talking about the individual breakpoint values, that's where you're setting up your design. And at first glance, everything is going to look great. Wow, it looks great at the mobile portrait, looks great at tablet, looks great at desktop. But then you're going to go ahead and get a device that you didn't accommodate, and things are going to look off, right? And the reason for that is that you go in and you are establishing a reference to the right and to the bottom. It may look good in one device, but it's completely off in another. So how do we fix that? Well, what we want to do is go in and build a relationship with the object, not to the edge of the screen, but to another object itself. And this is one of the beautiful things about Captivate 9, is the ability to go in and take these objects, which is I have a person, I have a caption. Right now, they are related to the edge of the screen. I'm now going to set it up to where the caption is related to the position of the character. All right, so let's take a look at how that's done. Let's go back to our desktop view. As it is right now, in this desktop view, the position of the caption is referenced to the top and to the left. But now I want to go ahead and build a relationship so that this caption, its position, is based upon this character right here. So I'll select this caption and watch what happens when I take the end cap here and move it. Look at that. I can go in and build a relationship with this object based upon the distance or the edge of my character. I'm going to release. And now the relationship is there. I can also go in and take the top and set it to the relationship of the top of the character. Wow, that's awesome. So that relationship is now built or based upon this piece of artwork. Let's go to the tablet portrait. Again, the relationship is based upon the percentages of the edge of the screen. I'm now going to go ahead and take my end cap, set it to the edge of the character, and I'm also going to do, let's see here, can I do the bottom of the character? Yeah, let's do the bottom of the character. Let's go to mobile. We'll go to the edge of the character here. And let's do the top of the character this time. Let's try top, if we can get that. There we go. All right, so I've now modified the relationship, so we're not talking about the edge of the screen, but the relationship between this caption and the character. And let's preview that. Let's see if it's a little cleaner. I'm going to preview my project. All right, so that's looking good. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Look at that. All right, so we still got a little bit of work to do right there at that breakpoint. But that's not bad. All right, so we do have one little issue right here at the tablet. And I believe the relationship was set up to the bottom of the character. Let's modify that and set the relationship to the top of the character. And I bet that will clean that issue up. So let's go back to Captivate. I'm going to go to Tablet, and yeah, sure enough, look at that. The relationship was set up to the bottom of the character, and that didn't work out so well. Not a problem. We'll click right here on the end cap, if I can get it here. Move it up. We'll set that relationship. Let's save our work and preview it once again. Oh yeah, there we go. That's looking great in every single breakpoint and in between the breakpoints. Okay, so yeah, this is going to take a little bit of practice, and I know that for a lot of you, the whole relative position is new, and that's fine. But this is the world that we live in, where you're going to have to learn how to accommodate all these different devices in different sizes, and it's a different way of thinking. So as you begin your first responsive project, start small and run through a few exercises and try this out so that you understand how to make multiple objects look good at these different sizes. Because if you just blast through it and slap content in here, it's not going to look so good. And we know what happens with our content when it doesn't look good, it's not consumable, and it's just poor training. So again, take the time and understand these relationships. Okay, so now that we have a better understanding of how to position content in a relative fashion, let's now take a look at building out these specific pages that are in our storyboard. So now we're going to be adding additional content in here. We're going to be looking at interactions, media types, and talking about how we can go in and accommodate all these different sizes. Now we're going to mix it up here a little bit and add some additional breakpoints in. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to add additional breakpoints, and then we'll begin creating our slides. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and close out of a few of these previews here. Just clean that up. Let's go back into Captivate. All right, so I now want to talk about adding additional breakpoints into your project and why you would want to do that. As it stands right now, we have desktop, we have tablet portrait, and we have mobile portrait. When you're thinking about how the student is going to consume the content, you may only want to use mobile portrait. Again, what types of devices, the content that you're trying to provide, is there a certain orientation that's just gonna work, right? If you only want the user to be in mobile portrait or tablet portrait and not have these other breakpoints, that's fine. As a matter of fact, Adobe has even added a preference in here if you want to go that route. Let's take a look at that preference. I'm going to go under Edit, and let's go down to Preferences. All right, so one of the things that we want to go in and take a look at is in the category Publish settings. Look at this option right here. This is brand new in Captivate 9. Disallow phone landscape orientation. So if the user attempts to go in and put their phone in landscape and it, the browser flips around and the content is identified in landscape orientation, a message is going to come up. Now you can go in and you can change the message. It says right now this course is best viewed in portrait. Again, you can modify and change that to anything that you want. That is so cool. As opposed to the user experiencing something that just doesn't look good, it's not even going to allow it. They're going to have to change the orientation of their device and then continue consuming the content. So I absolutely love this option in here. It simplifies the way the content is consumed, and you don't have to worry about all those different views. But let's say that's not the case. Let's say that you're going to go for it and you want to accommodate every device in every orientation. I have to say that is probably the worst case scenario from a development standpoint, but that could be your reality. How are we going to handle that? I'm going to go ahead and deselect disallow, and we'll just hit cancel. All right, well, so the project comes in and you need to accommodate every device, every orientation. That's where these additional breakpoints are going to come in. You can see that we have the plus indicators right here, and they are not part of our project yet. We saw in the preview, and I'll preview it once again, when I preview my project, that we only have the 3 breakpoints. Pretty easy. Watch what happens when we go in and we click the plus. We now have a new breakpoint. Now this says custom tablet, but I can go in and you can change the name. And I can say tablet land for landscape. We got mobile, custom mobile, and I can go in and just change that to mobile land for landscape. Excellent, so I can change the name. Also, you'll notice that there is a close button here, or deselect. I can turn that breakpoint off. So I can just as easily click on it. It asks me, are you sure you want to delete the breakpoint? I say yes, and it goes back to a plus. If I were to preview this, you'll see I'll have 4 breakpoints. There's that landscape, tablet. All right. If we go back and we add it back in, preview, we'll now have 5. And there they are. Okay. It's interesting. You can see how by just adding a breakpoint in after the fact caused issues with the position of that object. So, word to the wise, make sure that when you do your project planning that you assess how many breakpoints you're going to have and all the devices that you're going to accommodate. You don't want to go in here and add these breakpoints after the fact. All right, make sure that you have your game plan down and you know how many breakpoints you're going to work with. All right, back in Captivate we go. So I've now gone in and I've added these additional breakpoints in here, getting ready to go in and start laying out my slides. Now again, leveraging the themes when you lay out these slides is critical for your success. just because the themes have been set up in such a way that the content is going to look good as you go through these different breakpoints. Let's go ahead and investigate this first slide right here. So let's go ahead and just preview this first slide and take a look at the layout. Let me pause it. And as I go through my breakpoints, you can see that it looks good on each one. And as I go in and as I scrub through all the various views, it looks good all the way across. Thank you, Adobe. Because that's going to save you a tremendous amount of time. And that's my recommendation, is that as you begin to learn responsive design here in Captivate, I would lean hard on these themes and these layouts while you get to understand the position of objects and custom layouts. You can really knock projects out fast by, again, leveraging these predefined layouts here. And that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to leverage these layouts and just start adding content to them, and then take a look at some of the additional features along the way as we build these slides out. All right. So this one slide right here that was our scratch slide, we can go ahead and get rid of that and then focus our attention on building out our Springhouse course, our responsive course. So let's delete this slide. Let's get rid of it. So we'll just go in and we can right click and delete that slide. And now we're ready to go in and start creating our slides here. Now, we can work in conjunction with the storyboard, start laying out our slides, and start thinking about the position of our objects. And we're also going to get into quiz questions and interactions, so hang tight. In regards to the layouts, remember that in the Properties panel, if you click the drop down, we have all the various layouts sitting right here. Again, we're going to leverage these hard as we go in and set up the structure of the course. Now, when I go in and I build out my projects, I like to go in and just sweep the project and start establishing the slides all one time. All right, some people will do it one slide at a time and build it out. With a responsive course, and actually with all kinds of courses I create, I'll just go in and block everything in just so I can get a feel for the look. If I'm dealing with any type of navigation structures, I can add those in, branching, or any type of remedial content in a quiz. Those types of situations I can investigate and take care of those, and then focus my attention on those individual slides. That's what we're going to do here today. We're going to go in, open up that storyboard, take a look at the slide types that are in there, and just create them. Take a look at our preview, make sure that it looks good all the way through, and then start adding our content. So let's go back to the storyboard, take a look at the slide types that are in here, and then start building out our course. So back to the storyboard we go. All right, so just take a look at the slide types that I have in here. You can see I have a title slide, learning objectives, a video overview, and a knowledge check. Let's just focus our attention on those first three slides here. Let's do title slide, learning objectives, and a video overview. All right, so back to Captivate we go. Well, it just so happens that we do have a title slide in here, and we can go in and leverage that. Odds are I'll probably end up swapping or changing out the artwork for that. And you know what, just for our design purposes, let's go ahead and just put blank up there for now. I really want to go ahead and customize it and make it look more like Springhouse than this gentleman with the phone. So let's just go ahead and add blank, or select blank, and use this for our title page. I always like to name the slide or screens as we're working with them. So I'll go up here, I'll just name this title. And let's continue building out. The next one that we have is a learning objective slide. So let's go to slides. Let's add a content slide. Let's change the layout. We'll go to properties, hit the drop down. Let's add some learning objectives. Let's keep on moving. So we'll type in learning objectives. Next slide, that's going to be our video. We'll go to slides, add a content slide. Let's figure out the layout that we need there. And for this one, let's go to content 2. I like that. We're going to be able to go ahead and have a large area for our video. This is just going to be our video slide. And we'll name it Back to the Storyboard. All right, so moving forward, we have a knowledge check, we have a topic slide, and we have an interaction. Knowledge check. Well, this is brand new in Captivate 9. I am so excited that this is in here. We finally have an interaction type knowledge check that is separated from the quiz scope in Captivate. This is a true quiz question. You could place it in here and it has no relationship to the quiz. It's just a pure interaction. You can choose any question type that you want. It's beautiful. So let's go in, let's add this knowledge check question here. It's a true false. We have a topic slide and then an interaction. So let's go back to Captivate. We'll go to slides and look at that. Knowledge check slide. Let's select it. I'm looking for one true false question. We'll click OK. And the theme kicks in. So my theme is going to give me this nice responsive knowledge check in here. And obviously we can go in and place the content later. I'm just going to go in and just label this KC for knowledge check. Next slide, we have a topic slide and then an interaction. We'll go to slides, content slide, and we're just going to go in and change this up as far as the topic. Again, I'll just label that topic. We'll go to slides, content slide. Now I need something to hold an interaction. So I need a little bit of room in here. Let's take a look. All right, I think I have a layout here at the top. Yeah, let's go back to content 2. That's a good one there for an interaction. And I'll just label this interaction. Awesome. Now, just to see where things are at, make a check our progress, save your work. Let's see what this looks like, in a responsive preview as we block in. Now, again, it's not going to be that exciting, but you will see what's going to happen when we test all these various breakpoints with these layouts. Preview. Let's preview the whole project. All right, so it's going through the course. Let me just pause it right here. And you can see everything is accommodated. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful with the question? Every single view, that question is going to look great. We may want to go ahead and make some tweaks, and I'm going to talk about some user interface things to consider as we move forward. But I mean, out of the box, this is wonderful. And these layouts are all looking good so far. Okay, so that makes me happy. Everything is looking wonderful at all these various breakpoints. Let's go back into Captivate. All right, let's continue working on our different slide types. We're going to go back to our storyboard. We got another knowledge check. It's a multiple choice. We got another topic slide, and we have another interaction. All right, great. Same 3 again. So let's go in. Let's add another knowledge check. This is going to be a multiple choice. We just need one of them. We'll click OK. It inserts the multiple choice. This is another knowledge check. We'll do KC2 for that one. Let's add a content slide. We just need a layout here. I'm going to change it up a bit. We'll go content 4. This is topic 2. And we need another interaction slide. I'm just go to Slides, Content Slide. You need something wide open to hold that interaction that we're going to place in there. Let me go ahead and just use the Content 2 again. And that's going to be Interaction 2. All right, we're almost there. We're close. We got our final quiz at the end. So we have 2 quiz questions, and then we have a resources page. Let's add those quiz questions in there. Now, this is not a knowledge check. We're actually applying a true quiz at the end of this course, 2 questions, and this is going to kick the user into quiz mode. So all of this is going to work in a responsive project, which is just fantastic. So we're going to go in here and just we have 1 true false, 1 multiple choice, 1 of each. We'll click OK. This is also going to give us a results slide in here, also responsive. That's part of the theme. And the final slide that we have here is a resources page. So go to Slides, Content Slide, and let's modify the view here. And let's say that this is for resources. Let's save our work. And let's look at it one last time here. This is our whole entire course. We'll go to Preview, Project. And as I page through the course, I can feel confident that this is going to look great so far at any view. My multiple choice questions look awesome. You can see even these various layouts here, they're accommodated. This is a great foundation. All right, I may want to go in and tweak. You can see that the question 1 of 2 is wrapping there, but that's pretty minor considering everything that we've done so far. All right, let's go back. So we've now gone in and we've blocked out this responsive course. Again, you'll notice that having a theme set is going to save you a tremendous amount of time. I mean, if you decide to go in and create your own backgrounds and lay everything out, hey, you can go for it. It definitely will take you a lot of time, and my recommendation when you're starting out is to leverage this theme, block your course out, and just go through the whole entire process of just focusing on your unique content for each slide without the concern for the background. As you raise your skills up and you begin to get used to the positioning of the objects, then you can go in and take a look at creating custom backgrounds and custom layouts, even going in and starting to modify the master slides. Now, it's beyond the scope of this particular class, but you can go in and create your own various content layouts that are going to respond to those breakpoints properly. But in this course, we're going to keep it simple and just stick with our theme that we have here and start laying out our particular slides. So let's go ahead and start laying out our first slide, our title slide. We'll look at our storyboard. We'll see what assets we got to bring in here and take a look at some of the additional features on that position panel. All right, so let's go ahead and lay out our first slide. All right, so I'm back here on the title slide, and I'm going to go in and look at the storyboard here real quick. You can see that we just simply have some text in here, employee orientation, our culture, and we have some audio that's inside here. So let's go ahead and go back to Captivate. We need to go in and place a text object in here. My recommendation for text objects moving forward is using shapes. I know that under text that we do have the text caption in here. That is the legacy text caption in Captivate, which is fine. I mean, if you are trying to upgrade your project and you still have those old text captions in there, but I do recommend going in and using a shape. And I'm just going to use a rectangle here today. Let's go to Shape, Rectangle, like so. You double click the shape and you can start typing. All right, so I've keyed in employee orientation. Now remember, I'm starting at the desktop, right? It's like what I mentioned before. Please be careful that you're not in one of these other views. You have to set the desktop view first and then work the cascade down. Let's set the properties for the individual object first, then we'll go in and we'll worry about position and size. Okay, so in properties, I'm going to scroll down and you can see that we have our typical settings in here for our text. Let's bring this up so we can actually read it. We'll knock it up even further. There we go. That looks great. I'm just going to change the height of this, like so. And now let's talk about the position. All right, so we now have the position of this particular object, and you can see that we have the top and the left and the bottom and the right. We've already talked about the object size. And we've already talked about the smart position. Let's go ahead and pop open the advanced area. The advanced, we're going to dabble a little bit into the advanced settings in here. If I want to go in and set a maximum width, a maximum height, so it doesn't exceed these values, I can. I can also set up minimums. And this is to accommodate the scaling of the object as we go through the various breakpoints. I'm not really concerned with those. I'm more concerned with these values right here, specifically this one. Align, center, vertically on the slide. So I can go ahead and center it here vertically if I want, or I can go in and center this horizontally. That's really cool. So if I want to go ahead and make sure that in every breakpoint, this thing is in the center of the screen, I can set it up like that. Now in this case, I want to go ahead and add a picture in here and make sure that they're centered horizontally. So I'll just move this up. Well, first I got to take this off. Move it up, and it's going to center horizontally on the slide. That's going to be at every single breakpoint. So as I go in, look at that. You can see how it's changing. Now as far as the text size, we'll get into that in just a bit. All right, let's go ahead and let's add a photo of the Springhouse restaurant. Let's go to Media, let's go to Image, and again, I'm inside Lesson 2, and I'm going to take this small picture here of the Springhouse, hit Open, and we now need to go in and scale this down. So I'm going to just grab a corner point here, hold down Shift, click and drag towards the center to scale the photo. We'll put the photo towards the center. And again, in the position panel, we'll go into Advanced, and I want to align this horizontally on the screen. Let's take a look at the breakpoints. Hey, not bad. I mean, we definitely have some modifications to make here, but we're off to a good start. All right, let's go ahead and save our work. All right, so we have our first slide laid out here, and it's looking good so far. But as you notice, when I started going through those breakpoints, things started changing in regards to the size of the text. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a break. We've been at this for a while here. And when we get back after the break, I'm going to talk about specific things like the formatting of an object, like a shape, and what happened to the size of the text as we went through those various breakpoints. We'll go in, we'll readjust this photo just to make sure that it looks good, and we'll start building out those other slides. So, hey, this is looking great so far. On the other side of the break, we'll come back, we'll start knocking out these other slides, and we'll look at something called object styles that we're going to leverage that we can make unique with each of these breakpoints. Hey everybody, and welcome back. So where we left off, we were just getting started with our nice layouts here in our Captivate 9 responsive project, and we're going to go ahead and continue. I want to go in and give you a little bit of what else we're going to be covering here now that we have the start of our layouts and we begin to set up these screens. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the text. You notice that in the preview that the text was changing. I want to get into object styles and how you can work with these different breakpoints to make your content look fantastic at any breakpoint. We'll then go in and continue working on this title slide. We're going to get into some animation, right? And how beautiful these animations are going to look even in a responsive project here in Captivate 9. We'll also go in and take a look at media types. The storyboard required some audio here on our first slide, so we're going to add audio in, and also we have a video that we have to place in here, and how is that going to work with the responsive project? So we have a lot to cover. Let's get right in and talk about object styles in a responsive project. All right, so here we are back with our employee orientation screen, our title slide right here, and one of the issues that you may have seen when we previewed this last was the size of the text. Let's go ahead and take a look at the break here between tablet and tablet portrait. So I have my landscape view and I have my portrait view, and yeah, that text is off. So let's take a look at what is driving that and how you can make modifications to object styles to leverage all these various breakpoints. Start the process, we need to select the object. Let's go to Properties, and let's take a look at the style name for this object. So you can see here that we're talking about the default smart shape style. Say that 5 times fast. Okay, so we're looking at the default smart shape style, and we need to go into the Object Style Manager, look at the options for the object, and you're going to see we have unique breakpoint options. So let's go into the object styles. Let's go to Edit, and let's go down to Object Style Manager. So here we are in the Object Style Manager. I'm just going to move this over to the left slightly, and I'm looking for the default Smart Shape Style. We'll go into Standard Objects, Smart Shapes, Smart Shape, and so here we have the default Smart Shape Style. Now the problem occurred in between the breakpoints, and you can see here that we have breakpoints: Desktop, Tablet Landscape, Tablet Portrait, Mobile, Mobile Portrait. All right, and so what I'd like to do first is go ahead and determine, hey, do I need to go ahead and make modifications to each of these? And this would be a great time to do that. So Desktop, let's say that's 22. Tablet Landscape, let's say that's 20. You can see how it's now maintained. Tablet Portrait, we'll keep at 18. Mobile, let's say we're going to keep at, we'll keep it at 16. And Mobile Portrait, we'll keep it at 16. All right, so I'm getting a preview down here in the lower left-hand corner. This looks fine. Again, you could go in and we could take a large amount of time and set all these various options as far as layout. You can see you can modify spacing and margins and all that. It's all that's here accommodated. But I think we can just deal with the font size for now. Go ahead and click OK. I also want to make sure that the style has been implemented properly. So I'm going to go ahead and reset that style in here. And we have the default Smart Shape style. And you can see that now I have a true reflection of what the object style is. All right, so it was modified at first, but now by going in and resetting it, you can see the 22, 20, 18, 18, 16. All right, so this is great. Let's go back in, modify it once again based upon what we're seeing right here, and we should be good to go. We'll go back under Edit, Object Style Manager. We'll go back to our Smart Shapes, Desktop. All right, let's really beef this up. Let's go ahead and say 30 for our desktop. For our tablet landscape, that's going to be 24. For a tablet portrait, we'll say 20. For a mobile, let's bump that up to 18. And mobile portrait, we'll keep that at 18. All right, I'll click OK. That now has been applied. Take a look, the object, the style, and the size at each one of these breakpoints. We got 30, 24, 20, and so on. Now I can continue to tweak this, but as long as you understand the relationship between the Object Style Manager, setting up each of the styles of the breakpoints, it's going to be well worth your time to identify which objects in Captivate you're going to be working with for your project, and then how you can update the object styles before you start developing. Now you can always change this while you're developing, but I do recommend taking the time, going to your Object Style Manager, working through the objects that you're going to be using for your course. Maybe you're going to be using buttons, smart shapes, like titles, and notice that the breakpoints here are represented, and you work through the breakpoints, set up the objects the way that you want them so that when you implement them, they are good to go. So that is the Object Style Manager. Another one of the really cool things that's here in Captivate 9 is the ability to take an object and animate it. Here in Captivate 9, we can go in and apply an effect that will also work in the responsive environment. This is very exciting. We're simply going to go in and take a look at the timing panel. Here in the timing panel, you can see that we have an effect area, and as I scroll down, as I hover over these effects, you can see that they are applied, and I get a little preview. I can go in and hit the drop down. We have emphasis. Again, pretty crazy. And these are all going to work in the responsive environment. All right, so now I just need to determine which animation that I'd like. And I think we're looking for an entrance here. And I do like the faded zoom in. We'll try that one. So I'll click faded zoom in. The FX icon has been applied to the object. And we have some attributes down here below as far as the initial alpha, the scaling X and Y, the final alpha. That's perfect. If I want to go ahead and have the to quicken the pace of the animation, I can change the duration to 1 second, so it's really fast, or I can slow it down and set it to 3 seconds. It's entirely up to me. Now the effects has changed here in Captivate 9. There's no effects panel anymore. Everything has been integrated in with the timeline. Let's take a quick look at that. If you would, just go ahead and single-click Timeline and pop that open. The object I'm currently dealing with here is a smart shape. I'll click on the triangle to rotate it down. There is my effect, faded zoom in. The current effect duration is 3 seconds, but I can go in and modify this to 2 seconds and see it's now reflected here on the timeline. I can change when the effect starts, when it stops, by simply moving this up and down the timeline. Now I definitely want to have it happen at the beginning of the object. So the effect start is going to be at 0 seconds right away. And the effect is going to last 2 seconds, and then the object's going to remain visible right here. Excellent. Let's try the spring house image. So let's say that we want this image to begin appearing at 1.5 seconds. I'll go ahead and I'll move this to 1.5, but then I want to animate it on. I'm just going to do a simple fade. That's all I'm going to do. And to do a simple fade of the object, I'm going to go into alpha, from, and to. We'll scroll down. The initial alpha is going to be 0. The final alpha is going to be 100, so it completely fades in. We'll start it at 0, and it's going to be a quick fade over 1 second. Once you apply the effect, the timeline has modified. You can see right here, there's my effect on that object. So this effect should just be completing when this new one kicks in. Let's go ahead and save our work. Let's preview next 5 slides and take a look. All right. Now, so we just saw the animation, but then it kicked forward to the next slide. All right, so the animation's occurring right there, and I can scrub this back and forth. Let's take a look at the different breakpoints. It's looking okay. All right, so obviously there's some tweaking that we're going to have to do here as far as the size, but the point being is that the animations still come through on all these various breakpoints. Even as you go in and you slide this back and forth, even in between the breakpoints, those animations are still going to play. So from a creativity standpoint, you can go crazy with your animations in here, knowing that the responsive environment in Captivate is going to handle them. All right, back we go to Captivate. Excellent. So now that we have the animation in here, there is just some little tweaking I want to do with this, and it will require going in and working on the size of the photo and also the size of the title across the top. Remember, you'll start from your desktop and work your way down left to right through the breakpoints, looking at each layout and also determining the relationship between the objects and where they're sitting. Now, remember that we had in a position the attribute align center horizontally. We got that down. That's not going to be a problem. What we want to focus our attention on right now is just the object size. Just the object size. So let us go through our breakpoints, look at each object and its object size. We'll look at desktop, and that's looking good. And, tablet portrait. All right. So maybe I want to go ahead and just bring this up slightly for my mobile. Again, that's not a problem. I can go in, and as far as the height and the object size, I can just click on this and start scaling this up, like so. And we can see here that, yeah, now that I've changed it, remember that orange is going to kick in, and here it cascades down, and that looks good. All right, let's talk about the photo. Again, always start from the left and work your way down. So we'll start at the left. That's looking good. We'll work our way down. All right, so now maybe I want to go ahead and start scaling this up. So I'll shift, scale it up. Remember, because we still have align center on the position right here, it stays centered on the screen. It's going to go down the cascade of these different points, up a little bit too big. So I'll scale that back down. And we'll scale this back up. All right, again, a lot to accommodate for with all these various breakpoints. But as I go back through them, hey, this is looking pretty good. Let's do one final test. We'll take a look at our animation, and we'll also take a look at the image. Let's go ahead and preview next 5 slides. And the animation plays. That's looking good. Let me go back and pause. Look at the breakpoints. It's looking all right. And we'll go in and we'll move the slider across, making sure there's nothing really out of whack with the various layouts here, and everything's looking all right. Excellent. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that, we have, this is Captivate, and so you'll notice that the playback head rolled forward and kicked over into slide number 2 automatically. Well, nothing has changed there. That's still going to happen inside this environment where you have to consider, do I want to just run through this animation and have it go to the next slide automatically, which is the default, or do I need to include an object in here to stop the playback head and give a directive to the student? That's entirely up to you. Now, we're just going to go ahead and keep this simple and go ahead and extend the timeline so that it's not abrupt at the end. If you want to pause the timeline, you'll have to put a button, a click box, or some other type of thing in here that pauses the timeline, like a text entry interaction, to stop everything. And then they have to go ahead and click next to continue or do some type of object. So just keep that in mind. That is still the case here in a responsive project. Let's just simply extend the timeline, and then we'll go on and move on to getting some audio into this slide. So let's extend the timeline. Just like any other type of Captivate project, we can go in and extend our timeline here to accommodate the longer animation or change this abrupt end. To extend your timeline, you can go down to the background of the slide. We'll go to the end. Notice that my cursor is changed to a double arrow. I'm going to click, hold down my mouse, and drag to the right, extending the length of the slide. Now you'll notice that some of these objects here, including the effect, are going along for the ride, while these other objects are remaining stationary. And it's all due to this little red triangle at the end. The duration of the object is set, and we can change this very easily by going in and moving this out, like so, and then taking our cursor and moving where we want the start point to be and moving it back this direction here. Now notice the effect goes along with it, and we can set this back to where it was before. Again, not a problem. Now, what about the visibility of the employee orientation? Well, it's going to go away. If I move my playback head forward, you can see that the employee orientation animation comes out. There is our photo, and then it, boop, goes away. How can we get this out? Well, I can go ahead and drag this out here like so, but I'm going to share with you a keyboard shortcut I absolutely love. When you want to move an object and have it go to the end line, now I can right click on this and I can modify the object to show for the rest of the slide, and that keyboard shortcut is Control E. Now the way I remember that Control E is I say to myself, extend to the end. Control E, extend to the end. So I'll select my object, I'll hit Control and E, or Command E if you're on a Mac, and there we go. It's now extended to the end, and it's now going to be visible for the whole duration. Awesome. So we've extended this timeline. Again, keep in mind that the timeline is for all the different breakpoints. There's no separate timelines here, so as I go through the various breakpoints, we just have the same timeline. And we should be good to go right here. Now, the final thing that we had, if I quickly look at my storyboard, was that there is add an audio intro. We do have some audio in here that we want to add. Not a problem with a responsive course. So we can go in and we can add media. I can add audio. If we go to our student files, lesson 2, audio, right there. We have our Springhouse intro music. We have an MP3 file, that's fine. I'll hit open. It's going to ask me if I want to have this audio extend into other slides. No thank you. Let's just go ahead and use this one slide, but extend the length of the slide. So let's click OK. All right, let's take a look at what happened. We got a little push of our objects out here. So be careful if you add the audio in. Obviously these objects got pushed out. Not a problem. Just take it, slide it right on back, and you're good to go. I'm going to take a look and a listen here. All right, so my audio track is playing, and this slide is good to go. Hey, not bad. So we've gone in and we've completed this one slide, but the one thing I want to talk to you about is the duration of the amount of time it's going to take to accommodate all these various views. If I was just doing a single size Captivate project, this one slide would have been done by now, at least a long time ago. But now we have to go in and we have to accommodate for all these various breakpoints. Please take that in consideration in your project plan, the amount of time it's going to take to go in and go through each breakpoint to test. Your testing time and your development time are going to increase significantly, but the payoff is going to be you can use all these devices, right? So, for courses that are high impact courses in your company or your organization where it's got to reach a lot of people, you may want to go in and focus your attention on those because, again, it's going to take a while to get through this, but the possibilities are just amazing as far as how many folks, how many devices are accommodated here in Captivate 9. All right, let's continue developing our course here. We're going to move on to the next slide, and here we have our learning objectives. Again, we should always start back up here on our desktop view, and let's talk about adding text to a placeholder. So here we have this title across the top. Now this is a placeholder that's part of the theme that we implemented. And watch what happens when we double click, we add the title. The text is going to be added to the desktop view. Let's look at the other views after we add our text. I'm going to double click. Let's go ahead and type in learning objectives. Deselect the object. The text is now set. As I go through the other breakpoints, that copy goes all the way through. That's fantastic. Now what I need to avoid doing is setting the text at one of the later breakpoints, one of the breakpoints down the line here. Because if we set it, and let's say that I'm here on the mobile portrait, and I just want to go ahead and set this first learning objective. It doesn't go back the other way. So if I look at my storyboard, we have a welcome. Let's just type in the word welcome. So double click, type in the word welcome, set the text, deselect it. Whoa, look at that. That could be a major headache. So if you set the text from right to left, you're going to have to go into each one of these breakpoints and set it. It's very time consuming. So we start to the left, we start with the desktop, we set our text, welcome, it's set, And look at that. It goes and cascades down through all the views. Again, I can't emphasize enough how you have to start over here on the desktop and work your way over. If you pick or you're not in the desktop, you will have to go back in and add the copy back in here. Very time consuming. So let's go in and we'll finish our learning objectives here. Let me just do one more. Philosophy. Again, we'll set it just by deselecting it, and you can see it's now updated all the way through. If you don't like the size of the text, take a look at the style. This is my default caption style. Again, I can go into the Object Style Manager and change it. Not a problem. Let's take a look at that real quick. Edit, Object Style Manager, Standard Objects, Captions. That's my default text caption, and we have our breakpoints. I can go ahead and bump up the text. So my desktop, let's call it 24. Tablet landscape 24. Tablet portrait, we'll call it 20. Mobile 18. And mobile portrait 18. Let's see what that looks like. Click OK. It's making the updates. Give it a moment. It's got something to think about here. And you can see that now it's been updated. A little bit easier to read. All right. Let's go ahead and let's do a little video. So we have our audio in there. Oh, and real quick, just a little note on the audio and HTML5. Just like any other type of technology, HTML5 is a maturing technology, meaning that sometimes some of the kinks haven't all been worked out. And unfortunately, audio has been a challenging area for developers to deal with, especially when you have multiple audio tracks playing at the same time. Now, as the technology progresses, we're seeing better results with simultaneous audio tracks, but just a little tip, in your projects when you're dealing with audio, try to avoid having audio clips playing at the same time or overlapping. Also, you want to make sure that if the user does get an option to go ahead and play some audio, that you have some time for the audio to play, complete, and then there's another audio track that has played. In my experience, what I've noticed is that if the user attempts to play many different audio tracks, sometimes they don't play back in the mobile browsers. So make sure you take some time and test that if you have concurrent audio playing in your course. Okay? Let's do some video. So on slide number 3, we have video in here, and this is just going to be Chef Tim. So again, notice I'm on the desktop view. What happens when you set the text? That's right, it goes all the way through. Huge time saver. Let's now go ahead and remove these captions in here. We don't need them. So those objects are gone. Away they go. Let's go ahead and set our video. I'm going to go in and go back to best fit, making sure that I can see the whole entire timeline or the whole entire work area. And I'm going to drop my timeline down. Let's add our video. We'll go to Media, select Video. Now for this, we are going to use a multi-slide synchronized video. Now what's the difference? Well, Event Video is going to add a playback control at the bottom. It's optional, but it is independent of the timeline. The user can control it independently, but in this case, I'd rather just have the video play and have them go on to the next slide. All right. Again, it's entirely up to you how you want your video interaction to work, but The event video, again, is independent of the timeline. The multi-slide synchronized video is dependent on the timeline. That's what I want to use here. We'll pick our video. And we're going to go to our student files. Go to lesson 2, video, and there's our Chef Tim interview. I'll hit open. We'll keep it progressive download. It's going to go onto the stage. We're going to keep it to 1 slide. Modify the slide duration to accommodate the video, and we'll click OK. I'll simply take this object and just slide it down like so. All right. Now, the video, just like any other type of object, is going to work in regards to position. There's nothing special here. So just keep that in mind. Just like a graphic, we can go in and determine where the position is going to be, how big is it going to be as far as the object size, and so let's set that up right now. Now, obviously, I need to go ahead and scale this up a little bit here. So I'm going to scale this like so. And let's shoot for getting our video as big as possible in here and centering it on the screen. Remember where that center was at? Yeah, that's right. You'll go into position. You got to drop down advanced, and we're going to go ahead and align center on the horizontal. Align center on the horizontal. All right. Now, once we have the desktop set, we can start looking at our other breakpoints with this video. We got tablet, and you can see, yeah, it's not looking so good on these others here. So we got a little bit of work to do. So I'm going to go ahead and start working with the object size on this video. Again, it's going to center automatically. So I'll scale this up for our tablet landscape. We have our tablet portrait, and now I got to make a decision. When you start working with video and thinking about the size of the video and the different orientations that the user is going to experience, you can strategically shoot your video so that you can actually have some of it go off the screen, or you can move the video so that it's framed a certain way where the talent is in the middle of the screen. And now obviously here, I got Chef Tim off on the right-hand side of the shot, so I can afford to go ahead and slide the video towards the left and center him on the screen if need be. In this case, I have a little bit of extra space down here at the bottom, so I'll go in and scale this up, and he's still in the shot. That's going to look pretty good. All right, so let me just go ahead and take a look at the video here. Now obviously, once we go into the mobile landscape, this is way too big, so we're going to go ahead and scale that up, scale it down. Keep it centered. And then we have our, and this is the tricky one, because we have in here the mobile orientation, a very tall orientation with my video. So I'm going to go ahead and scale my video up. Take Chef Tim and slide him over. And to release that, we have to go to Position, turn off Align Center. That's going to allow me to go in and modify the position of the video. All right. Well, let's see what we got here. We're going to have to preview this. I'm going to guarantee that at first, when we go through the different breakpoints, the breakpoints themselves are probably going to look good. As we choose the breakpoint slider, that's going to be a different story. But let's save our work. Let's preview our video. So we'll do next 5 slides.
Okay. So from the ownership piece, we
all right, so Chef Tim is talking.
Day-to-day operations and event planning, community outreach. So that's sort of the top level, if you will. The next level,
all right.
I feel
so
are the culinary chef.
Now, as I look at this video,
chef and a PM chef. So there's 9 culinarians that report to these 2 chefs.
You can see that it's centered there.
7 porters that handle the stewarding, the warewashing, and the maintenance of the kitchen.
All right, so it's centered. And it's kind of interesting how as I go to the breakpoint, it's not centered, but as I click on it, it resets. Let me stop that. Sorry about that. So again, it looks a little funny. You know, as I go to some of these breakpoints, it looks really good. And others, I'm going to have to work on the position. But for the most part, the video is consumable, and that's what we want to achieve, so that when somebody is holding their device, that there's not a lot of distraction. The video is consumable. They can see everything that they need to see in the video, and they're not fighting trying to get the right orientation. So actually, this is looking pretty good. Another thing that you may want to do is throw a black in the background here. As far as the video, I'll make this video pop as opposed to the white. Again, obviously it depends upon the color of your video, but in this case, probably a dark background will make that whole thing pop and make it easier to see for the student. Notice here on my mobile portrait that by repositioning the video, it actually looks fairly good in here, and we're not sacrificing not seeing that other side of the video there. And as I scroll through, yeah, it's looking all right. I probably want to go ahead and think about the scale at the smaller size right here, but for the most part, this is looking really good. Awesome. All right, so we've got our video in there at all our various breakpoints. Let's go ahead and go back. And let's go back to the desktop view. Now, as I mentioned before, in regards to the background color, we can modify and adjust that even here in the responsive environment. Let's take a look at that. If you would, go to your film strip and select your slide, your video slide. Again, we always start here with the desktop, right? The current background is the master slide background. Now, if I go in and I start changing this, like to custom, I can go in and modify the slide color, and now I have my black background. That's what I'm looking for. By changing it on the slide, all the breakpoints accommodate, and now that video is going to be easier to view with the black background. Again, background, change it from master slide background to custom, and change the slide color there to black. And that's a really good looking video there on all the various breakpoints. Awesome. All right, let's now go and move on to our quiz question. All right, so here we have a knowledge check, and the knowledge checks, if you use a theme, are going to look good as you go through all these breakpoints. It's a huge time saver. The one thing that you want to take a look at, specific with the responsive questions, are the feedback and the way that it looks, the feedback looks at the various breakpoints. Again, making sure that the question is visible, they can see the question, the answers, the distractors, and all that. When you're setting up the question, you'll want to start at the desktop, go to the quiz panel, and like you would with any other quiz setup, make sure that you go in and make any kind of modifications that you need to. This includes the object style and any sizing that you may want to take care of. For instance, yes, I know this is a true-false question. I may want to go ahead and beef up a little bit the size here of the question itself, but these answers are really small. That is my default question answer style. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and increase that for sure. So let's go ahead and first get a true take on the style. One thing of note, you'll see here that there is a plus in front of that style name. If you see the plus in front of the style, something with this style has been modified. It hasn't been applied to the style, but something has been tweaked or changed. Before I go in and modify anything here with this, I like to go in and reset the style. So I'll reset the style. It doesn't look like there was anything that was dramatically changed with this. That's a good thing. Now I'll go into the Object Style Manager and let's just tweak this question out. So we'll go to Edit, Object Style Manager, and I got to go into my standard objects, quizzing objects, and we are looking for the default question answer style. And where are you at? Question answer text. Well, you know what? This is an interesting situation. This is going to happen. You know, I'm looking for this default question answer style, and there are just tons of styles in here. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, and I'm sure I can eventually find this, but you know what? Sometimes it's just a bother to come in and scroll through this whole thing and trying to find it as you look through it. So let me show you a different way to set this up. Let me just hit cancel. So I want to go in and modify this text, but I want to update my style. It can be done here in the Properties panel. So the way we're going to do this is the following. You'll select your text object or whatever object you're working with and make the modification to the style right within the panel here. So I just want to bump up the font size. Let's say I want to take it from 20 to 28. All right. I'm just going to move this other object down here momentarily. So I've gone in, I've modified the style, and look at this. Here we are with the plus right in front of it there. But what I'm going to do is go in here, and I want to save my changes to this existing style. So I save the changes, give it a moment, it's thinking about it. And what it's doing is going through and looking for all the other objects that have that style applied to it, and it's going to go in and apply that style to false, and there we go. It just did it. So now it's been applied to false. So I didn't need to go, there's no need to go into the Object Style Manager. I can do it right here within the Properties panel, again, simply by going in and saving changes to that existing style. That's really cool. All right, let's take a look at our breakpoints. So we'll go through. And that's looking pretty good, except for maybe the tablet portrait right there. Again, being able to go in and find the object style is going to be helpful for these different breakpoints, but I think you get it right now. We've already gone in, we've updated these styles at the breakpoints with a prior object. You'll just need to go in and make sure the question is good to go. All right, excellent. All right, so we've gone in, we've got the question. Let's now take a look at an interaction. Let's continue on. So now this is going to be our interaction, and going back to the storyboard real quick, we can see that the interaction is going to be this multi-state object rollover reveal. I'm actually going to go ahead and simplify this interaction, and let's take a look at a tab-based interaction that's going to hold this information in here. Utilizing this layout, I'm just going to go in and type in interaction. I'm just going to remove the title and remove this image placeholder. All right. Again, I'm starting up at the desktop. I'm always starting at the desktop as I add my objects and get things inside of Captivate. We'll go to Interactions, and let's go to Learning Interaction. I'm going to simply select Tabs and hit Insert. And I can go in and take a little bit of time and add the information in here. But what I'm going to do is just click OK, get this interaction in here, take a look at it. Of course, I want to leverage a look that's going to be similar or spot on with what I'm working with here. So let me go in and try to find something that is similar. And we'll just go ahead and keep this neutral. Let's use this orange here. That looks good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leverage this theme. We'll click OK. And we'll go ahead and we'll scale this down. Again, look at the position. Even though I'm working with something like an interaction, Captivate is still going to leverage the position of the object in a relative fashion. We always want to start with the desktop first, get it into position, and again, I'm going to leverage the same technique that we use for the video and center this object. So I'm going to go to Position, Advanced, and let's go ahead and align center. All right, now I can go in and scale this up. That's looking good. Let's start working through our breakpoints. I love it. All right. Now, again, when you get down to the smaller devices, you want to take in consideration the size of the buttons. The typical size that folks shoot for is 50 pixels or higher for a button. Now, I guarantee when I test this that this is just not going to work. It's going to be way too small. So when you start getting at the smaller sizes, you may want to eliminate things like the word interaction or the title up here and take advantage of the whole screen real estate that you have here with the object of focus, like a video, or in this case, the tab interaction. I'm going to go in and scale this up and utilize my whole entire space here for this so that the buttons and the whole interaction is going to be easier to work with at that size. Same thing here. I may want to go in and just scale this whole thing up, take up the whole entire screen, again, making it easier for the user to work with this interaction. And I'll just work it up here just a little bit, like so. All right, let's go ahead and save our work, and we're going to preview next 5 slides. All right, get this preview open here, and we'll pause it. So here's my interaction. You can see that this is functioning, and this is working just fine. Go to Breakpoint. Look at that. Oh man, I love this. There's the interaction on our mobile device. Orientation's changed, and the user has access to this interaction at every single size. As I scale this down, look at that interaction change. That is beautiful. Wow. All right. So what we've seen here is that the built-in Captivate interactions are responsive. So as you plan your courses, with confidence, you can go in and use these interactions at all your various breakpoints. Now, obviously, you're going to want to test that, right? So every interaction is going to be unique, and it's going to have its own way of displaying and how the user is going to interact with it. So make sure you take the time and test. But as you can see right here, that just by going in and thinking strategically about the device and the size of the buttons, you can scale that up, accommodate the smaller mobile device size right here by using the whole entire screen, and then maybe taking it and putting it in such a way that there's some more additional branding or a title across the top for the tablet version. But again, I think that is just a fantastic feature here in Captivate 9 is the accommodation of all those interaction types with the responsive. All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and continue on. Okay, so we've gone in and we've taken a look at an interaction, we take a look at a knowledge check, and we still have more topic slides to get into. I think the one thing that I do want to mention in here is one of the other features, and it's not in my storyboard, but I do want to go ahead and demonstrate it here real quick, is a recording and what's going to happen with the recording inside of a responsive environment. Because I know for a lot of you, you are doing system training. You're not necessarily going to go ahead and create a course just with videos and images, but actually what's going to happen when we do a recording here in Captivate. So let's take a moment and take a break from this file and switch things up a bit. and talk about recording and what the output's going to be for responsive, and take a look at that whole workflow. So the first thing that we want to do to start the recording process, and this is a little tricky because you got to think about what's happening inside of Captivate. Let's save this file if you haven't already and close out of it just for the moment. We'll come back to it in a little bit. Let's close out. All right. Back in the splash screen here in Captivate, let's go ahead and click on New. And let's take a look at the various projects that we have here. So you can see that we have responsive project, I got software simulation, and so on. Now, out of the gate, you'll look at this and go, well, let's go ahead and do a software simulation. But if you choose software simulation, that is not responsive, nor can you change it to a responsive project after you create it. It is what it is. So if I click, do software simulation and hit create, it's going to want to go in and record, but it's not a responsive project. So let me cancel out of that. So how do I get a responsive recording? The trick is that you have to start with a responsive project. Once you establish the responsive project, you then can record inside of that project. How about that? So we'll start with responsive project, we'll hit create. And now I have my responsive project here. Let's go to slides and look what we have. Software simulation, video demo. Each of these recording types are available in a responsive project, and we can go in, create our recording, and watch how Captivate's going to handle the responsive need of the playback. In this example, I'm simply going to go in and do an image search in a browser, and that's going to be what we're going to record here today. So let's go ahead and walk through creating a software simulation. First, I want to go ahead and prep my browser before I record. So let me go into a browser, and let's go ahead and just bring this open, and we're ready to go ahead and search for an image. We'll now go ahead and start the recording process by going to Slides and Software Simulation. Select the slide after which the recorded slides must be inserted. Hey, perfect. It's only got one slide. Click OK. Now we're going in and we're starting the recording process. So the current size here is 1024 by 627. Again, we're talking about the initial desktop size in the responsive area. We have to pick the window that we want to record. Obviously, it's going to be the browser, and we want to snap it right in there. Great. That's going to go ahead and show me the whole entire application. That's perfect. This is going to be automatic, and then we have our modes. Now, I can only choose a single mode. This is one of the caveats of recording inside of a responsive project. So, where if you start a new file in Captivate, you have the ability to create all 4 of these recordings in one shot, which is awesome. But because we have to start the workflow with an existing file, we can only pick one. And in this case today, I'm just going to do a demonstration recording. I'm not going to pan, I'm not going to have any narration. I'm just going to go ahead and record, and let's see what happens here. So I'm going to hit record and just walk through the steps. All right, so I'm currently recording here in Captivate, and I'm just going to type in a search. It's going to look for a football. I'll hit enter. All right, so I'm going in and getting a result set back. We want some images. I'll click on a football image. I'd like to view that image. Maybe. It's thinking about it. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do here is we'll just say, okay, oh, here we go. It's finally coming in. And while that's coming in, we'll just wait on it here real quick. That's fine, that's enough. We'll just right click on this, save it out, and that's fine for our recording. All right, so we didn't get every single step in here as far as the save, but you get the idea. So I'm going to go in and stop the recording by hitting the End key on my keyboard. And now we have the result of the recording. Let's take a look at what Captivate has created here. Keep in mind that I didn't set the additional breakpoints. Okay, so we only have the 3 breakpoints for this, which is fine. I'm going to go in and save my work. I'm going to call it Demo. We'll save it out. Let's go ahead and preview our project and take a look at what Captivate's going to do here with the recording. All right, so everything is looking really good here at the desktop view. Obviously, there's some tweaks I'm going to have to make in here. Let's go ahead and go back. Let's take a look at the other views. So I'm going to go to Tablet. Now, take a look at what's happening with the background. Captivate is going to go ahead and figure out where the area of action is and slide things over to accommodate. So as I play this on my tablet, things are still looking good. Obviously, again, we'll have to make some edits here. But for the most part, this is looking great and still holds up as far as playback. All right, well, we got one more view here. Let's go ahead and roll this thing back here. I'll pause it once we get to the Google screen. Let's go to our mobile output. Yet again, notice that Captivate's focusing in on the area of interactivity. You know, where did I interact? Let me hit play. All right, now obviously we're going to have a little bit of work to do here. But the images in the background are being centered wherever the area of interactivity is. That's pretty slick. Let's take a look real quick. Let me go back. Let me pause. And I'm just going to move this back and forth. Now take a look at what's happening here with the background. And you can see that from the first breakpoint to the second breakpoint, there's some scaling that's going on. And then from the second to the third, it's sliding the background. So there's no degradation in the quality. So again, it's trying its best to go in and give the user the best view of this interaction. Awesome. All right. So what are the takeaways from a demonstration recording and responsive? One, it works. That's awesome. You know, so if you are focused in on system-based training and you have these recordings that need to be consumed at these various sizes, and not just a demonstration, you can also go in and do an assessment. You could do a guided practice and make them interactive, and those will also work in the responsive environment. We saw that the desktop and the tablet view look great. The mobile view, a little bit of work that we have to do there to accommodate that breakpoint. But that's the thing. Every single screen that is recorded, we'll have to go in and edit. And you may have to go in and edit at each breakpoint. Just depends upon the recording and the objects that are created. So be aware. If you decide to go down this road, you may have to make many edits to accommodate this responsive playback. But yet again, what's the value? We have all these various devices here that now are accommodated for this recording, and that could have a huge payoff in your organization. You just got to weigh that out, all right? But again, Captivate's doing the job, and we're able to go in and do our demonstration recording at these various breakpoints. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and head back to our other file. We'll go to File, Open Recent, and we'll just select Lesson 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at, and again, we've gone in and we have explored all these various slides. Now we're not going to lay out every single slide. I just want to go in and talk about a few more here. Let's take a look at the regular quiz questions. Well, just like the knowledge checks, the quiz questions will accommodate and will also respond to all the various breakpoints. Let's take a look at the regular quiz question. So I'm on my quiz question, my first one. We'll select Preview, next 5 slides. And you can see as I go through all my breakpoints here, the quiz questions still look great, just like the knowledge checks. So they utilize the same content layout from the master slide in the theme, so there's no difference in here other than the functionality and being in quiz mode. Once you go in and you get through the quiz, you're going to get a results slide. I'm failing here miserably. You're going to get a results slide, and that results slide also responds. Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. All right, so that's all taken care of. So we now have gone through and have looked at the majority of the slides that are in here and the slide types, and it's really going to be a matter of going in and laying out your content and taking the time to validate that each slide is going to look fantastic. Now, what about some additional features that are in here that we should be aware of? Well, again, Adobe is thinking about mobile and ways that these devices can enhance the user experience through your course. One of those ways is geolocation, and I briefly want to mention it here in this course. Again, we're focused on responsive, but it's also mobile. So let's take a look at geolocation. So with geolocation, we have to go in and take a look at the variables. Let's go to let's go to Project Variables. And the way this is going to work is we're going to go in and add a new variable. It's going to be a geolocation variable. I can just give it a name. For instance, I can go in and just say this is America. Geo. I can choose from the map. And I can zoom out and expand this to accommodate most of the United States. Now, obviously, if there's I want to choose Hawaii and Alaska, it's going to be a larger circle, but I can go in and get most of the United States that's in here. Hit Submit, and this has been selected. So now I have a specific geolocation for America. I can save this out. It's added in here, and I continue adding additional, so if it's Europe _ geo, I can go in and make this a geolocation variable, zoom out, go over to Europe, and expand this out. Now, obviously, we're going to be accommodating, other countries that are in here, but for the most part, that's all accommodated. So hit Submit, and we have the other variable, and we'll save that out. All right, so we have these two geolocation variables in here, and the idea is that if we have, let's go ahead and get this result page in here. So on the result page, I'm just going to type in geolocation. Let's get rid of these other items in here. And let's just simply say that we're going to have two objects on here representing each of those countries. So I'm just going to have one object here that's America and another object that's going to be Europe. I'll just copy and paste that. All right. Now, based upon where we're at, we need to go in and just show the correct version. Now, this could be images, this could be audio, video. It could be all kinds of different stuff that you want to show depending upon where you're located at. The idea is to go ahead and hide these right here. I'm just going to hide them by going into the object, selecting it, go to Properties, click on the eyeball here. It's not visible in the output. We'll need to go in and set up some code that's going to check to see where are we at. And based upon our geolocation, we can go in and show the appropriate content. So we have to write an advanced action. This is beautiful because even in responsive projects, we have access to advanced actions. So we'll go to Project, we'll select Advanced Action. This is going to be a conditional action. And we'll call this Check Geo. Our little decision tree or decision block here, call this America. And we want to go in and write a little bit of code. And we're going to say, as long as our variable which is going to be cpinfo geolocation, is equal to our variable American Geo. I'd like to go ahead and show, and I believe that one is going to be this Smart Shape right here, Smart Shape 3. I'm going to go ahead and save that action, and I probably should have gone in and named those items. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. So I'm just going to name that, see, it was 4. America, Europe, then we go back to that advanced action. There we go. And now that I have it named properly, that's going to be America. Awesome. We'll go right here, and this is going to be Europe. We'll write that decision, and we want to go ahead and check the variable. This variable is going to be cpinfo geolocation is equal to our variable Europe Geo. I want to go ahead and show Europe. Awesome. All right, so we're going to update our action, hit close. Now, on this particular page, I will need to go in, select the page itself. We'll go to Actions, and when you enter this page, I would like to execute an advanced action, check Geo. Check Geo. That's really cool. Now, the one thing about this project, though, is that I want to make sure that when I set up when I set this up, that geolocation is turned on, and I have everything that I need here, for the geolocation. So, when you go through the publishing process here in Captivate, you can see that geolocation is not turned on. I want to make sure that thing is on. and that when geolocation changes, we want to execute my check geo script. This is brand new in Captivate 9, and it really helps out for testing purposes. This is called the mobile palette. Now, I accessed it by going through the publishing process. That's one way to get it. The other way that you can get it, close out, is by going under Window, Mobile Palette. Window, Mobile Palette. Geolocation, check Geo, and click OK. Hey, you know, while I'm in here, also notice that we do have gestures. So your mobile project also takes gestures. So playing pause, navigation, zooming, and so on. Let's click OK. I'm going to go ahead and preview next 5 slides. So here's my geolocation slide, and it says emulate geolocation. I want to emulate America. America comes up. I want to emulate Europe. Europe comes up. Now I have to adjust my code because I would want to hide America or hide Europe if they have an option to change. But point being is that, hey, they came up when I went in and changed this code. That's really cool. So we can see that the geolocation code in the simulator here is actually working. That is awesome. Getting back to those gestures. You know, there are times, especially when you are involved with interactions, like we set up this interaction right here, that we don't want those mobile gestures in play. We don't want the mobile gestures in play. And let's revisit that by going under Window, Mobile Palette. Here are the gestures that the users can use on a touch screen. Again, play and pause, long tap. Navigation back and forth is a swipe. Zoom is a pinch. If you have the table of contents implemented, double tap to show and hide it. And show and hide the play bar is swipe up and down. Again, you may not want to have this on certain screens, especially in branching situations, right? So you may remove the navigation buttons, which, you know, again, they removes the ability to navigate, but if the user swipes left and right, well, that takes away the functionality that you're trying to achieve. So what do? Well, here in Captivate 9, you have the ability to turn off gesture navigation per slide. And that can be accomplished by going to the film strip, selecting the slide, and simply turning off Allow Gesture Navigation. Again, this is at the slide level. So I can go in and click, turn off Allow Gesture Navigation while other slides have it. That is really slick. Okay. So, responsive design, extremely powerful. I got one last thing to talk about here today, and it's getting this project out the door. Now, we've seen with the geolocation and also the gestures that you'll want to go ahead and set those up, or at least think about them, consider them prior to doing your project. Now, the geolocation, yeah, that's a little bit extra, and it's very specific if you have the ability to tap into someone's geolocation information on their device. The gestures, definitely something you need to think about before you publish out this project, whether you want to turn gestures off altogether, incorporate them, or incorporate them on certain slides. So make sure you go through all of those. Now, let's go ahead and test our work before we publish. So let's go back and let's talk about other testing situations here for our responsive project. So up until this point, we have been going in and previewing our project, and it's been great. It's been great going in and looking at all the various breakpoints in here. But what if we're going up to a learning management system, right? And what if we want to go in and kick back a score? Here in Captivate 9, we have Preview in SCORM Cloud. This is brand new. And so if we are in a situation where our quiz is going to get scored. Now what I'm going to do is go in and set up a preference here so it scores out. Go into Quiz Preferences. We'll enable reporting. We'll just leave all the defaults. We'll click OK. Under Preview, we have Preview in SCORM Cloud. Your file is going to be pushed up to the SCORM Cloud environment. There's no login required. It just happens automatically. You just need an internet connection. So I'm going to Preview in SCORM Cloud. And it's going in, it's pushing the content up. And once it's up there, it's going to go ahead and start the process of opening up the page and showing me my content. Now, hopefully it's not going to take too long. Now, I did put a video in here, and there's some audio. You can see it's progressing now. So we're halfway done. Once this is complete, we'll get a preview of the course. I'm going to jump to those quiz questions. All right, so I can hear my audio and see my animation here. Everything is responsive here in SCORM Cloud.
Okay.
There's my video. We'll skip the knowledge check. All right, here's our quiz question. Submit. Oh, that was a knowledge check, sorry. There's our quiz question. Submit. Correct. We'll go to the next quiz question. Submit. Correct. And that's great. And I can actually go down here and show the logs. And I can see what's happening as far as the calls back and forth to the LMS, SCORM Cloud. I'm now done. I can hit continue. Finish up the course, which takes me back to this geolocation. I'm going to go ahead and close the window out. I want to get the results. It fetches the results. And look at that. I scored 100. Yay me. Pretty awesome. And so by having SCORM Cloud integrated in with your responsive course, you're going to be able to go in and check a lot of this complicated information in here against a common LMS like SCORM Cloud. This is just wonderful. And it's built right in. Let me close out. Once you're done testing, now it's time to finish up and publish out your course. I'll hit the drop down for publish. Let's talk about each of these here. So the first option is publish for devices. This is probably going to be the one that you're going to go with. Again, it's going to be probably the most popular one because it's going to allow you to push this up to a web server or a learning management system for all devices. The second option, publish for devices app, is going to convert the HTML5 to an application. This is an iOS or Android or Windows-based application. Will definitely take a little bit more work and is beyond the scope of what we're talking about here today. But again, if you want a pure app on the phone, that's the direction to go. You can take your responsive course, you can publish it up to Adobe Connect, and view the responsive course inside the Connect environment. And the last option is the brand new Adobe Captivate Prime Learning Management System. That responsive course can go into Captivate Prime and the course can be taken through that LMS. Awesome. A lot of great features in here. Today we're going to focus in on publishing for devices. Let's go ahead and select Publish for Device. Notice that, of course, the only output type is HTML5. There's no Flash here at all, right? The project title is going to extract itself from the name of the file, Lesson 1, and we have the location where this is going to reside. So the published file default is my Adobe Captivate projects. Because this is a file prepped for a learning management system, we will zip it up. Learning management systems take a package file or a zip file. This is ready to go. We do have our options down here. You can see that mobile gestures are turned on, but we went in and selectively turned off allow gesture navigations on a few of our slides. Geolocation is turned on, so our geolocation slide at the end is going to work. And of course, for our learning management system, we have SCORM 1.2 set. I'm going to go ahead and hit publish. And that will publish out. Publish complete successfully. So now I can go in and navigate to that directory. So we're going to go into Documents, and that's going to be my Adobe Captivate projects. And inside there, we have Lesson 1 zip. There it is. That particular file can be pushed up to your learning management system. And of course, we have all the files ready to rock inside there. Excellent. All right, you made it. Hopefully you now have a better understanding what it takes to create a responsive project. It will take proper planning, and it will take you some time to go in and get acclimated to how to lay out your content, how to plan the content accordingly based upon your instructional design process and the media that you want to implement throughout the course, also your knowledge check questions, quiz questions, and any other types of interactions that you want to get to. Now, we didn't get to things like drag and drop, but rest assured, those types of interactions also work in the responsive environment. But test early and test often. So hopefully you built a successful project today. Can't wait to do more work with you down the road. Thanks again for hanging out with me. I'm Josh Cavalier with BrightStreamTV, and hopefully we'll see you in another class soon. Take care.